I said, thank you for coming here today.
Great to be at NEC.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great to have you here.
My pleasure.
So what makes you different from the other Democratic candidates?
Well, believe it or not, there are 21, I believe, 21 Democratic candidates on the New Hampshire ballot. And what I love about New Hampshire is you can bring a $1,000 check, got to be 35 years old and born in the United States, and you can get on the ballot and run for president of the United States of America. That's not true in a lot of states. And I've only been at this for 2 weeks, and I have to tell you both, I'm shocked at how this system puts up barriers to entry for candidates, that limits people's choices, that results, if you ask me, in a lot of the division and the low quality of candidates that so many Americans are disappointed by. It costs millions of dollars, requires many people, attorneys, and oftentimes soliciting thousands and thousands of signatures by paying firms to sit on street corners and go into doors and signing them, which is designed to make it hard. And I have to say, New Hampshire does it in a way that I think every state should do, and that's why you have 21 candidates. You ask me what's different? I've got a business background, I've got a nonprofit experience background, and I have some government background. I'd be the first candidate for president in a long time that has those multitude of experiences. I've traveled the world, traveled 49 of 50 states, and I've also lived on both sides of advantage. Lost my father in the Vietnam War when I was 6 months old. Spent the first 2 years of my life with my mom, who was widowed at 24, living with my great-grandparents. And when I was about 3, I was adopted by a new father, an amazing man, into a great family of prosperity and great opportunity. And I understand how fortunate I am. And I think that gratitude is my attitude of trying to share that with more people, because I don't think our country is doing a good job of affording opportunity to enough Americans. And I think that's why we're feeling division. That's why we're seeing wealth and income inequity. And that's why I think we're at great risk and in great crisis. And lastly, I just don't think people who have been doing this for 50 years in the same places with the same ideas, the same surroundings, are going to solve it. I think it's time for a new generation, and that's why I'm running.
To really piggyback off that first question, in the past you've never voted against Biden in the representatives. Why run against him now?
So I'm not running to defeat the president. I'm running because Americans are asking for alternatives. They want choices. 80% of the country does not want this rematch from 2020. Over 50% of Democrats are saying they want a different candidate. 80% of Democrats under 30 are saying they do not want President Biden to be the nominee. Last night in Ohio, they did an exit poll of all those who voted for cannabis legalization and women's reproductive rights, to codify. Only 25% of those voters said they believe that the president should even run for office. So there's a massive disconnect between what people are asking for and what the Democratic Party and institution is providing. And that's a dangerous combination. And I have supported the president's agenda. I voted for it. I sat on the Democratic caucus House leadership team. I had to market the very policies that I voted for. But it's not enough. And I've not heard anything about the future right now from the president. I'm only hearing about all the good things done in the past. But we have people all around the country, many of them right here, suffering. I can ask you too, but affordability, fuel and groceries and housing, health care, child care. People are really suffering, and I'm afraid that the current policies are not addressing it. There's a disconnect between issues like cannabis legalization. The country wants it clearly. The president hasn't favored it. We have a crisis at our southern border that has to be addressed. It's a national security issue. We have a massive number of problems facing our country, including a health system that is completely broken, health care. People are one illness away from bankruptcy. And I'm just afraid these people of the past and policies of the past are not going to fix it. And that's why I'm running, for a more hopeful future. I just think it's time to pass the torch, time for a new generation, and also time for someone who leads the country from the White House, as I would do as president, that puts together all the voices of America around the table. I don't think we are at a place anymore in our country where we can think that Democrats or Republicans can win exclusively and then somehow bring the country together. I think the next president, and I intend to be that president, should have people at his table, her table, in the White House representing conservative perspectives, liberal perspectives, libertarian perspectives, so that, if you will, a team of rivals approach, where you have different ideas at the table instead of only the same people thinking the same way. I think that's why we're in crisis, and I think we have to do it different.
Awesome. So kind of going off that generational thing that you were talking about. So should there be term and age limits for elected officers?
Yeah, there should be term limits. I don't believe in age limits. But we have some age limits. You know how you can only be 65 years old to be an airline pilot in America, and then you got to retire. 65. Why do you think that is? Well, it's because people start developing health problems after 65, and they don't want people flying airplanes with passengers on it after that age. I don't believe in politics age limits are appropriate. I do believe term limits. I think we need 18-year term limits in the House and the Senate and the Supreme Court. I've seen firsthand when people are cycling out of their career in Congress, how they behave differently. They behave the way that all of us would want. Independent, they make the choices that are best for the country, not just best for their career. We have too many people who stay there for far too long. Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court, hugely consequential that she stayed and died in office. Dianne Feinstein, who just passed away, the remarkable senator from California, died in office. President Biden, will be 86 years old at the end of his next term if he were the president. And I think that's concerning to people. It's not my job to opine. I think that's Americans, but I think they are, and that's why I think the country's at great risk for a Donald Trump second presidency. And having lived through one in Congress the first time, let me assure you, it's very dangerous. And that's not throwing shade on Republicans or even people who support Donald Trump, but that man is dangerous, and that's why I'm running. We have got to defeat him, if you ask me.
When thinking about these sort of generational gaps, do you support Biden's student loan forgiveness program, and what would you do about this issue if elected president?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with students, as I will here, and I have recently at other schools, and I feel the pain of young people who have big dreams and are burdened with debt, who have to make life choices then, not based on their capacities and their interests and their desires, based on simply paying down debt. What I would do, and now with all that said, we have millions of people who have paid off their debt. I think the way to start is that we provide debt relief instantly to any people graduating school who fill public roles that we are desperately in need for. We have a huge deficiency of police officers, firefighters, nurses, even public officials. We have, I think, and military, Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, American volunteers, if you will. I think we should start by providing incentives. Teachers, most important perhaps. Why do we not start incentivizing the relief of debt to provide incentive to pursue categories of employment that America really needs? I think that's how we should start. Because I speak with a lot of people too who work very many years to pay off their debt entirely, and I'm afraid that if we simply absolved all the debt altogether, it creates a very difficult dynamic. So I think the beginning is just that, provide incentives in career paths where you would relieve debt in return for serving in those capacities. Not forever, but as we begin, because we are facing a crisis right now in a lot of the most important positions of the world, and we don't reward those people enough to begin with, teachers, firefighters, police officers, and the like, and we should change that as well. And furthermore, any student who incurs any debt, it should be the lowest rate humanly possible. I know too many people who pay less for their car loans than they do for their student loans. It's just ridiculous. And by the way, we shouldn't be having any student loans. We should be a nation that provides education to those who desire it and qualify for it, the way that most of the great nations in the world do. And that's part of my agenda, is to try to reform these systems that are literally keeping people from achieving the very American dream that presidents have said that they care about. And I think starting your life with too much debt is a terrible way to do it. But I think we have to take steps first and then absolutely end this nonsense.
So kind of flipping into now foreign policies of what is the role of the United States in foreign conflict, and should we be financially supporting Israel and Ukraine?
We should be financially supporting the conflicts in Ukraine and in Israel, because if we do not, those battles will come to our doors, and that's true. If we don't support Ukraine until the very, very end, Vladimir Putin will continue his rampage. President Obama had a chance, I believe it was 2014, when Putin invaded Crimea and did nothing, which sent the message to Vladimir Putin that you can continue this, and that's exactly what he just did. In the Middle East, Israel is our ally, our partner, the only democracy in the entire Middle East, the only progressive nation in the entire Middle East. And the answer is yes, we should be supporting Israel in its battle, but I would be the first Jewish president in American history, and I want to be the president that signs documents that establishes a Palestinian state for the first time, because it has to happen. Palestinians have been suffering, Israelis have been suffering. What Hamas did to Israelis was horrifying, disgusting. They've got to be eliminated. But both Israelis and Palestinians, I hope, will choose to elect leaders of peace. I believe it's time for Benjamin Netanyahu to step down. I think it's time for the settlement policy to end. I think it's time to allow the Palestinian people to vote for the first time since 2006 for leadership. Give them the choice. Do you want war or peace? And give Israelis the same choice. If they choose peace, we have got to establish a Palestinian state, ensure it's safe, secure, and has opportunity. And that's why I think the U.S. should be supporting not just Israel, but that initiative as well. It's terribly important. If we don't, this is going to come to our country. And by the way, talking about the border, it is a national security risk because there are malign actors, there are bad people around the world that know they can walk across a farm field from Manitoba to my state of Minnesota, they can walk across the Rio Grande into Texas. And we need better border security, and we need a much more humane and economically viable immigration policy. I'm different because I know that two things are usually true at once. Democrats do not have to take a single position, and Republicans, we should be blending the truth and pursuing what the country needs.
All right. To build off more of what you said about the Israel-Hamas war,
Mm-hmm.
recently Representative Rashida Tlaib was censored by the House for her comments about the Israel-Hamas war. Do you agree with her words or the action of your colleagues in the House?
I disagree with her words. Deeply disagree. I've told her, because Rashida is a friend of mine, and we've had some very difficult conversations for some years. But I also know her heart, and I think it's important that I, as a Jewish American, she as a Palestinian American, a woman of the Muslim faith, I have the Jewish faith, have a distinct responsibility to do our best to make peace between ourselves here, because if we can't do it, there's no chance in the Middle East. I've told her about her tweet is deeply offensive, it's misinformed, and it's actually not true. And I believe that, and I would not have voted to censure her last night, as I let her know, and as I've said publicly. I believe in free speech, even when it's really painful. And believe me, I've been subject to a lot of it. But that is what America is about. I think we need to preserve and protect that right to say what's on your mind, even if it is distasteful. 1 million Americans have died preserving that right, including my own father. And I take that very, very seriously. And I think our country is getting way too dangerous in its censorship of people, of its politicians. And despite that, there are some politicians that I think are very dangerous as well. But I think I want to give her the chance and extend the olive branch so that we can work together, and that was exactly why I did that.
To wrap this up, what do you think New Hampshire voters need to know about you?
That I spent my childhood in the White Mountains, that I love this state, that I learned how to love my country right here in New Hampshire. I never imagined I would be coming back to this neighborhood as a candidate for president. But my journey that very much started here in some ways is now coming back here. Makes me joyful to meet with folks throughout this great Granite State and listen to the problems they have, the ideas they have, the concerns, the reception I've received from Democrats and independents and Republicans. I was at a VFW today. There probably was not a single Democrat inside, probably about a dozen Republican veterans. I had one of the most extraordinary hours I've had probably in my entire life with these men, many of whom served in Vietnam, saw my dad's dog tag that I wear in my neck. And I recognize, because I'm here right now in this capacity, how great America is, and that we need a president who loves his Republican friends and fellow Americans and neighbors. And we need Democrats that do that and Republicans that do that. And I want people to know, yes, I'm a Democrat, I'm a proud Democrat, but I'm an American first. And I just want everybody in this country to take a step away from the division, take the labels off, and start reconnecting with each other. And my mission is to repair. Think of the word. It's to repair. If we don't start there, we're going to be in deep, deep trouble. We're in crisis. The generations of the past have failed at uniting this country. Donald Trump failed at it. President Biden has failed at it. And it's time for new leadership. And I want people to know that I'm here to listen. I'm here to walk through the snow and meet you. And most of all, I'm here to answer your questions, because I think it's time that politicians be honest and truthful and face voters and be subject to New Hampshire folks who want to challenge us, because you know how to do it. You've been doing it for 103 years, and I honor that, and that's why I'm here. And I'll be going to South Carolina, Michigan, and other states real soon. But in the meantime, come say hi, because I love you all, and I care deeply about our country, and I want you to join me. So please do. Dean24.com. My staff would get mad if I didn't tell you.